Ooh, we're live. You're frozen. Oh, that's a good way to start, isn't it? We shall see if Nick comes up. But hello, everybody, and if you're listening to us, then from the UK perspective, good evening. We are going to be going through, doing what we usually do with this part, which is obviously just the pre-show. And if Nick decides to come back, then we'll do what we do in the background, sort of getting our notes together, getting our make sure that we know what we're talking about, or at least we can pretend that we know what we're talking about, because this week we are talking about aviation, basically what your passenger experience may be like in the future. So anybody who's seen in the past couple of weeks the article about a double-decker airplane seat, then we're going to go through that. So we'll talk a bit about that, and then we shall break that down from a human factors perspective. And from my perspective, I just think it's really cool because there's so many different bits that to this that on the face of it, I just think it's insane. But actually, it could end up being quite cool. I've decided to come back now.
Yes, it's almost as if. Can you hear me? First off,
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah. It's almost as if my ISP is like, "Oh, they're starting. Hit that button."
Yes. Oh, still, usual rules apply.
Yep. Hi, everybody. We're here. I'm here.
My voice is here.
He's got a new toy.
Yeah,
which is cool.
It's very.
Oh.
Hey, on stream.
In Google, is there a page? There's got to be an insert page break, hasn't there?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah, there we go. No, I see it. There we go.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's good.
Good. Just makes it so we. I've got this thing about having different sections on different pages.
No, that's good. That's good.
I've been doing loads and loads of interviews over the past couple of weeks, which is quite cool. What was that? Yeah, that sounds like you tried to talk through gravel.
I am General Kenobi.
Okay, I see where you're coming from. Yeah, okay.
Oh yeah.
Even I've heard of him.
Malfunction.
Watch us make fools of ourselves.
The joys you can have with a voice changer.
Oh yeah.
I promise it's not going to be like this the entire time. We're not going to be sitting here playing with voice changer, although it would be fun. It would be very fun.
How about this? I'm in space.
See, you also hear the voice changer things do that for being in space, but then when you hear people actually in space, then they don't sound anything like that.
Oh, that's not me breathing.
It's alive.
Oh, it's because my oxygen is low. Okay, that breathing is actually really funny.
That's really bad.
I'm not doing that. It's just okay. Can we stop the breathing, please?
No.
There we go.
That's bad. This stuff where actually all it came from are just them, magically appeared. It's all rather cool.
What's that?
I'm liking how just everything is here, and all of the it came from are there, and
yeah, isn't that nice? How sometimes show notes are actually done beforehand, and They're prepared.
Yeah.
Kind of nice.
Let's actually
We're going to be talking about these double-decker airplane seats tonight. Those will be fun.
They know that already. I told them.
Lots of talking points on that. We were off last week. Took a little summer hiatus, and it was a much needed rest. So towards the end of the month, we have a lot of things going on. Typically with the show, but then also other stuff that we produce, publish, all that stuff. One of them is like the monthly roundup, and then also last month was Pride Month, and so there was like these multiple roundups, the multiple things that needed to happen like all at once. And I was like, oh, Thursday falls on the last day of the month. And Barry said he's not going to make it, and I don't even want to look for a replacement. Let's just, call off the show, and I will take care of all the things that need to be done. And in addition to that, I can talk a little bit about this during one more thing, but I spent a lot of time automating stuff this week, not only for the podcast, but also for like my work. And it's just been, I don't know. I don't feel like medication's kicking in this week because I've been hyper focused on automating things to make my life easier in the long run. And like, I've been totally heads down, just building out these process flows. When something happens, trigger something else, and then send it through a process. And then also like using different tools to see a bunch of information all in one space. It's been a good time.
Cool.
On the other end, kind of seeing the fruits of that labor, I
was going to say, I mean, it's one of these things that I know it's a bit like doing any sort of code, I guess, is it's tough doing it. But if you can actually see the positive impact fairly quickly, then you get that reward element, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
So are you there? Are you feeling like you're getting the reward that you should be getting?
Let me put it this way. I'm banging my head against a wall pretty hard right now, trying to get this last piece of the puzzle.
Right.
But if I can get this last piece of the puzzle, specifically with one of the projects that we're working on, I can talk through one of them that I've already done almost to completion. Again, just a little piece at the end there. But if I can get this piece of automation that I'm currently working on good to go, it's going to be life-changing. I say that without hyperbole. Like, it is going to be life-changing. I spend so much time doing this task that I'm trying to automate. And if I didn't have to do that task, it'd be really significant.
Cool.
But let me talk you through one of the other things that I built. So I actually had to, well, you can't see that because of it's blown out by the light. Here, hang on, let's see if we can do this. So you can kind of see that. Actually, let me change some lighting here so you might be able to see it even better. So this, you can't see the words, and that's okay. But basically, right here on the left-hand side, I have an illustration, or I guess that's your right. I have an illustration of what our end of the month monthly news roundups look like. Okay. Now, for everyone's reference, we do collect news stories every week. Obviously, we talk about some of them on the show. And we put out these weekly recaps that we use as kind of a basis for selecting news stories and talking about them. And so one of the things that we do at the end of the month is round those up, categorize them in terms of, which human factors domain do they belong to, that type of thing, and send them out as a public resource for those in the field. And it's something that, I've received some really positive feedback from a lot of folks who actually rely on those monthly recaps. They're like, I don't read your weekly stuff. Hope you don't mind, but I do read the monthly. And I'm like, okay, well, it doesn't matter because I do the weekly stuff for this anyway.
Yeah.
The monthly stuff, that is kind of like added value. But that being said, it is very tedious because I have to open up all 4 things. I have to plug in the links from those other 4 things. I have to copy all the stories from those other 4 things, or 5 things in some months. I have to... The most tedious is like taking the stuff that we've done on the show, right? So finding the YouTube, embedding it on the page, finding the title, linking that up. Basically just pulling all the information into one space is a lot. And so I've automated most of this. So you can see here that on this, again, on this page, sorry. There we go. Again, on this page, again, the light is blown out. So we talked about the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, we talked, and then on the left-hand side here, I've actually broken down several various components of this automated workflow that I would like to handle. So, for example, I would like to come up with some sort of, there's this tool in Zapier, which is what we're using for the automation, to make a digest. And so for the top section of our monthly news roundups, we have there's some really interesting things that are going on here, right? Because we display the title of the story, not our title of the episode. Because it is news, and we want to portray the news as it came out, not necessarily as we presented it. Mm-hmm. That is embedded below, but the raw news story, that is something that we need to do. And so we have that in the show notes, but then we'd have to search through our show notes and look for a very specific tag and pull that string out.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it'd be like show notes or story. Here's the story, image source. Okay, pull everything between those two, right? And that's a complex operation. That's something that may or may not be reliable every time. And so I built in whenever we do a story, thankfully I built a piece of automation to build our show notes based on, and I do put both of those in there. I put the link to the original story, and I put the story title in there, and I'm really thankful that I did, because now it's automated part of this, right? So that's all automated. The YouTube embed link is automated, which was difficult to do because then I had to, how did I do that? It somehow finds the YouTube embed link, which is difficult to do based on an RSS feed, which is how I'm getting our info, right, through our RSS. I think it searches the title, matches it up on YouTube, pulls in that... Oops. Matches it up on YouTube, pulls in that video, uses the embed link, pops it into this digest. And then there's the actual stories themselves. And this is, I have a separate feed for our blog. So there's a filter on the blog anytime it says weekly news. Okay, pull those in. And then find everything between, where the section is top news. And got some feedback for us. So anything between that, it'll pull it in. And then all the stories then are kind of broken out by human factors news in the middle, because I have top stories separated out from everything else with a break in between. So then I clean that up, put everything into one list, send it to a digest. And it just adds everything from that month on top of each other until I release it.
Yeah.
And the last piece of that is, like every time those links come in, put those at the bottom so I don't have to deal with that. There's some other things with like formatting the date. Anyway, what I've had it done is everything except the posting part. I have it send it to my email in raw HTML. I just copy it over, paste it into our blog tool, and then sort and filter or categorize the news stories, because that's something that automation can't really do well.
Yeah.
And so doing all that saves me so much time. So a monthly news roundup would take around an hour to do. Not only the sorting and filtering, but going through, gathering all the resources, putting it together. And again, this is value added. And because people said it was so useful and valuable, I wanted to find a way to automate this because it truly is, a value added and useful. And the way I saw it to begin with is that I'm already doing a lot of this stuff. Why not just throw it all in one and call it done? And that added so much time that I didn't anticipate. And so this takes care of a lot of that. Now all I need to do is go through and sort and filter. That takes me 5 minutes.
Nice.
And we have, a monthly digest now that's like super easy. And some of these components that go into it, I don't know, the news or our story embed. Basically what I'm saying is that I could loop these into maybe a email digest or something sometime. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's really powerful. Really, really powerful. Super cool stuff.
No, and this is where I think like the whole automation thing is good if you can. I mean, we were sort of talking about it last week, weren't we? It's if you get something that makes your life easier. If you're taking largely mundane things, but that are quite complex, you can't. They're not a simple thing, but they are mundane. And use that. Use a little bit of process, a little bit of mapping to make it work for you. Then that's where it adds value.
Mm-hmm.
And imagine if you could do that with a bit of AI in there as well to actually do some of the interrogation, categorization, and stuff like that. Then that'd be awesome, wouldn't it? So
absolutely, yeah. I mean, that would be game changing.
Mm.
I can't talk about the other project publicly that we're working on, just because we haven't announced anything yet. But that's cool. It's very cool. I talked to Barry about it before the show. It's very cool.
You're just teasing everybody else.
I am. I'm really sorry. We'll have an announcement a little later this year for that. But it's very, very cool. And like I said, if I can get this automation to kick in and work appropriately, I can almost stand back and just do like little bits and pieces compared to like let me pull back the curtain a little bit. Like you'll get to see the feet. So this process on a weekly basis requires at least I'd say, I don't know, at least half an hour time commitment, right? And beyond that, there's other time commitments associated with it that are spread across the span of months. And these threads historically have been hard to track. Recently, we've implemented some infrastructure to solve for some of that. And this is operating off of that infrastructure to automate other bits and pieces that have not been automated before. Okay, that's all I'll say about that. Stay tuned for an announcement at a later date because it is a really cool one.
So could you get any more cryptic?
I know. I'm sorry. Oh man.
Right.
I'm
trying a new thing on. Is it my next episode that's going out? So YouTube have a set as premiere function. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yes.
So I've decided to do my next one as a premiere and do that just because I've never done it before, and so I was going to see what happened.
The thing with premieres, you should be in there as it's premiering. You should be live with it, interacting with commenters. That is the purpose of premieres. We don't do them for this show because this is a live stream that is then turned into So, but if we didn't do it before this show, we would certainly do premieres.
So I'm going to have a go with that and see what happens.
Yeah, let me know results.
And because then I've noticed that with the Restream package I've got now, you can now do your recordings as live. Which it came up because I thought I could do that already, but it came up saying I can now do it. And I was like, okay, fair enough. So I might give that a go as well, just to play around a bit. But I also found out, because I think I mentioned a while ago that I've started to use Hero Post as my social media distribution platform, instead of like sort of Hootsuite or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly because it was cheaper. And it was going really, really well, because you can plan, like, sort of, you can set up a post and do it to launch on, say, the Monday, and then tell it when to repeat it. So you can repeat it on like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, which is what I've started to do now. Just the same thing time and time again. So new episode, that type of thing. Which worked really, really well. And then, because I've got it set up, so then I'll preview. So I've got some artwork to say this episode's coming up the week before, and then it's live the week after, and then it sort of flip flops in that sort of 2-week cycle, which was working really well till I got to last Sunday and was like, oh, hold on a second, I've got an episode queued up, ready to go on Monday, and I've done no social media for it. And so it hadn't been previewing or anything. So, which was annoying, but actually got it out of the way. What I don't like about this Hero Post is, because you're doing one post and then sending out to Twitter, to LinkedIn, to Facebook, to all them sort of things, you cannot at the people in, because if they've got different logins all the way through it. So that's been slightly annoying, but it's still better than the auto posting that you get from Podpage, because I don't like that function anymore.
Oh, for me, page functionality is because it doesn't have a scheduler. It doesn't allow me to specify which parts of my episode. Because, like, here's the thing: when they come into the system, they're in their raw format, and I go in and I tailor them just a little bit. Right, add the YouTube video, add the guests, add XYZ, and when I want it to go out, I want it to have the caption, which doesn't get imported from my feed. And so I want to have that, not description. I'd like to tailor it just like logic blocks that make it much more powerful. Hey, check out our episode 250 on double-decker airplanes, right? And
it would be,
I don't know.
Out of all the stuff, I know that they're aware that we've got this in as a request for it to be able to edit or to input all the information beforehand.
Yep.
Because we could. We absolutely could. Not necessarily the main chunks of stuff that they draw in through the RSS feed, but them extras like the links to the YouTube and all that sort of jazz. Mm-hmm. It would just be so much better, because for me, it's the artwork. It doesn't pull in the artwork from my host. So I don't put it in there anymore. So it doesn't pull that through to Podpage. Therefore, it goes out with the generic thing, which I then have to go in and change and then resend out. So it looks like you've almost had a false start with the feed. But then,
And by the way, this for me is why we release episodes late on Thursday instead of early Friday, is because I want to make sure before I go to bed that everything posts correctly. Otherwise, I'll be up early on Friday. When I do something, I want to make sure everything is good before it goes out into the world. And so that is why I release them on, Thursday nights, which is not a great time to actually release a podcast, by the way. You have got a really great slot, by the way, Monday mornings.
I was trying to. I'm doing some reading up the other day around podcast launch times, and I'm not convinced there's much in it. I think it's when you advertise that it's live that is key. So if you chuck it out into the world, people find it, and they've got it on. It'll pop up. I mean, I do Monday mornings on the theory that you're starting a new working week. Mine is, because I don't produce my weekly, you've got a whole chunk of content there that you might listen to a couple of days going to do your commute, or it's a long day there and back, or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of there, and it's a kickoff to the week or whenever you want to have it. So I would never put mine out on a Saturday morning, because that's not the right audience. No. But everything else, I did a little survey about when people thought I should put it out, and actually I sort of put it down to should you go out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, weekend. I think that's all. I think that they were the only options that Twitter gave me. And most people were just like, yeah, Monday, Tuesday's fine. Some people come back, Wednesday, Thursday, fine. The only thing I definitely got was not Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, we're still at least making the way I see it is like, worldwide, we're releasing early Friday, and so we catch the commute for, folks in Australia or something like that. But when you look at sort of charting, that's when time of day actually is really important. If you want to chart in the States, you should release at like 3 a.m. Eastern, because then it's like right before people start getting up, they open their phones, the things download, and those are like the top of their list. And so people are more likely to listen to those before, everything else that pops in below it. Anyway, we're talking shop. We're talking so much shop about podcasting. If you are interested in the behind the scenes of podcasting, that's, I guess we're talking about that now, but yeah, I don't know. It's always fun to talk shop.
We have to do it occasionally, otherwise we don't share best practice. So if we don't do that,
yeah, exactly. Speaking of, Barry, I think you and I need to talk about some things. I just did some things on our podcast side of things that I would love to get you involved with, if that's not enough of a tease.
Okay. I was trying to work out whether I was about to be told off or I was about
No. It's an invitation.
Okay.
And yeah, it could be cool. I'll show you.
Cool.
If you got a couple minutes to stick around, I know it's like midnight your time when we're done, but if you got a couple minutes after,
yeah, that will be fine. Okay.
All right. Are we good with the show notes?
Yes, we are. I've had to rewrite most of the story because it was very. Oh God, I've just done that. Shouldn't have done that. Largely just to make it flow better.
Yeah, it's fine.
Give it that. So that's all good. I've added a couple of things into it. You've done a great analysis on the breakdown, and I've added a few more bits into that. It came from. I haven't put any of my notes into that, so we'll freestyle that to a certain extent.
Fly by wire. That's okay.
Yeah, which is always more fun anyway. I just nick everything you're going to say.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, you go first. So, like, I've traditionally put my notes in there so you don't steal my points, but you still do anyway, so it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to do everything I can to make me look good.
I don't blame you.
There's a bit actually, which it is part of my one more thing, but I think we might have been invited to write an article for the Ergonomist. So I was talking to a friend of mine about it came up in a group I was in around the Google sentient thing, and I was like, well, you should listen to our podcast on that, and I'll go into that more later. But anyway, he's come back to me privately and said, oh, we should put an article in the Ergonomist. So I was going to suggest that we could make it between the three of us.
Yeah, that sounds great.
So yeah, I'll include you in on the email loop when I put my finger out. Oh, you know me too well already.
Oh, jeez. We'll try to keep this one PG. It's going to be very hard to keep it PG talking about airplane seats.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, it just lends itself. I mean, I'm surprised that the Google isn't all over it like a rash already.
Oh, man. Kick that up a little. Oh, I didn't show everybody else. Hey, I bought a new light. I used to have just a ring light. And I found a ceiling light on display. We'll start the show in just a minute here, but I found a ceiling light on display for a very affordable price, and it's supposed to emulate sunlight, right? And so what I have it right now is dimmed at 3% power. Because full power looks like this.
Well, it's like your head has just turned into the sun.
I know.
But it's like obviously in my background, I've got my LED light for the 1202 podcast.
Right.
That when I switch it on, if I do that is at 1%.
Right.
You know, if I put that anywhere near like sort of 100%, it just washes out the entire thing. It's absolutely insane. But I think that's also a tribute to the cameras. They pick up so much light.
Yeah, these cameras are well made. Yeah, I feel like I should just do the whole show like this. Shield eyes from light. All right. Hey, it's just about time that we start the show. If you have questions, comments, concerns about anything double-decker airplane related, please leave them in the comments. We'll address them, hopefully, during the show. No matter where you're watching, we'll get all of them.
Tell us that you're listening as well. I forgot to say that. Put some comments in the post to let us know that you're there. Otherwise, we're just talking to each other, which, as much as I like talking,
I mean, we see the number. We see the number at the top of our little display here, but it's always nice to actually see people behind.
I don't see a number.
Oh, do you not see that number? Okay,
no, I don't see a number.
All right, I see.
I'm just a measly guest. I don't get all the controls and the throttle. You know.
All right. Well, with that, we're gonna be taking a quick break, and then we'll be right back with the main show. Stay tuned. Whenever I hit this button, there it goes.
Welcome to Human Factors Cast, your weekly podcast for human factors, psychology, and design.
Hello, everybody. We have made it to episode 250. We're recording this live on July 7th, 2022. This is Human Factors Cast. I'm your host, Nick Roome. I'm joined today by Mr. Barry Kirby.
Hello.
Hi, Barry. We got a great show for you all tonight. We're going to be talking about human factors and usability implications of double-decker airline seats. We're also going to be answering some questions from the community about job titles and human factors, the stress and demand of everyday work in this career, and how to present summaries of user flows. But first, some quick programming notes and community update. We did round out last month. Last month was Pride Month, and we launched kind of a huge information campaign. Just want to draw attention to one of the pieces of content that we pulled out, one that we haven't done in quite a while, which is a deep dive. And on this most recent deep dive, it was into the sort of inclusion in the design process for LGBTQIAP+ individuals. It's actually a piece that I am really proud of. I did not write this. Someone in our lab wrote this. Katie wrote this. It is a phenomenal piece. I recommend everybody go read it and include it into your process, because it just talks a lot about inclusive design and sort of how we can sort of design for everyone, not just the 90% or whatever, and goes deep into the human factors connections as well. Anyway, that's a quick aside. But Barry, I want to know what's going on with 1202.
Well, just before I do 1202, it's worth saying that actually all the content that was produced by the team in the lab over Pride, I thought was exceptional. There was a whole lot of stuff there, a whole lot of resources that I thought were really, really cool. But over at 1202, the latest episode has gone live. Nearly forgot to do it when I was sort of mentioning in the pre-show here that that there was a lot of social media stuff that I nearly forgot to put out. But it was an interview with David Golightly. Now, Dave is a lecturer at Newcastle University, but he's done a lot of work in the rail industry. He's done quite a broad range of things, but the work he's done in rail, really bringing together that academic and the industrial look into all different parts of in different parts of rail, from freight all the way through to station design, etc., etc. But it was interesting the way that he was doing a lot of work that you'd think that most of the stuff that we would do would be around just purely the passenger experience. But it was actually more the background stuff that led to good passenger experience and therefore led to good productivity for the rail network, which is something we don't necessarily focus on as human factors practitioners stuff. We don't necessarily think about the complete end-to-end stuff. And that was really fascinating. But also, a lot of people got involved on the social media feeds with this. And there was quite a few railway-based jokes based on this. We tried not to put too many in the episode, but after a while, it all became a bit much. So on that, Nick, I suggest you get us back on track.
Chugga chugga choo choo, all aboard. All aboard the news train. This is the part of the show where we talk all about human factors news. Barry, what is the story this week?
So the story this week is about what it might be like to travel on a double-decker airplane seat. So flying economy for any extended period of time is an experience usually endured rather than enjoyed. But an airplane seat designer thinks their design could revolutionize budget travel. In many ways, it's really got to be seen to be believed, and I recommend that anybody follows the link to the article that's going to be in the description. But to try and describe it, the concept you get rid of the overhead lockers in the aircraft, and instead of having them, you put another layer of seating on top of the lower seat, but forward in front of you. So it's almost like the sat in the lap, which is interesting, but you can sort of see it when you see the picture. So the purpose has really been to change the economy class seats, because the designer claims for the better of humanity, or really for the people who cannot afford to pay for those more expensive seats. But whilst some people have been saying, actually, wow, this is amazing, you'll be using better use of the space, people can stretch out their legs and things like that. Others are really more concerned about like claustrophobia, and convinced that sitting underneath somebody else would be worse, not better, than the current economy setup on an aeroplane. To describe it in a bit more detail, effectively the top level has been designed with two ladder-like steps for the travelers to use to access that top level. It's described as a little bit precarious, but once you're up there, the seat is roomy, it's comfortable, and there's plenty of room for stretching out your legs, which, as a longer leg person, I think is the ideal. You're always looking to be able to stretch out your legs. And as the overhead lockers have gone, there's now space, or the idea is to have space in between the top and the bottom levels for travelers to stow their cabin luggage. Then everybody's thinking about, what about the person at the bottom? So in the bottom row, really, again, they were looking to aim to address that lack of leg room. And this offset design does allow for the passengers at the bottom to stretch out their legs as well. But because the other level of the seats are directly above them and in your eye line, people who've tried it suggest that it does feel a bit claustrophobic. But then again, if you don't mind tight spaces and you're planning to simply sleep all the way through the flight, it could be an effective solution. So this idea of the chaise long seat was initially envisaged for the Flying V aeroplane, which is a new airplane concept currently in development at Delft University of Technology. The designer thinks that the design could be implemented in anything like a Boeing 747, an Airbus A330, or any other medium to large wide-body aeroplane. So Nick, would you be taking the top seat, the bottom seat, or is it not for you and you just wouldn't bother?
Yeah, if I'm the top or bottom, it's not. For me, there's so this. Let me just put it this way: show notes this were very easy because I threw a lot in there, and it to me, and this might be just me. I'm thinking about all the things that us as practitioners, designers, engineers have to think in order for this to happen before I even entertain the idea of whether or not I would enjoy this space. So putting all that aside, I'm going to do that live right now. Would I enjoy sitting in this space? I don't know. I think the bottom would feel quite claustrophobic. I don't know how I'd feel sitting up on top unless I was sort of really in, towards the window. Are there windows on top? I don't know. And so these are all things that I would think about, but I don't know, this whole thing. And I do want to draw attention to one thing before we continue. You kept mentioning a designer. This person who designed these seats was 21 at the time of submitting this to I forget what it's called. It's the Crystal Cabin Awards, which is a prize for sort of a design within airplanes, the airplane cabin space, I should say. And so this is coming to us from a 21-year-old, and I don't want us to be too hard on that person because they are really trying to think outside the box here. And so we'll look at it with a human factors lens. We'll try to approach it from a sensible perspective. But I really do want to sort of encourage younger folks to continue to do this type of work. Think about other ways in which maybe traditionally would have been, I don't know, people would have put up a barrier because they said, okay, that's way too much. We can't think about everything. We're going to do that tonight. We're going to think through some of the implications and what all that means. But Barry, I'm curious what your kind of key or initial thoughts on this story were when you saw it.
Oh, when I saw it, I'd sort of seen it a few times. I think it's brilliant. I think for almost exactly the reasons that you just highlighted, it's somebody's taken the idea and gone, actually, we could do this differently. We don't know whether it's better or not, and you won't know until you get into decent user testing and all of, and it is, it's at that concept stage. And there is loads of stuff, and I think hopefully that some of the issues that we'll bring out will provide some almost direction and maybe in the way that they develop the seating. But I really like the idea that that we've tried to use that space more effectively. We're not just being they're not just going with the traditional way just for the sake of it. So I would like to think that maybe I wouldn't like to sit in that seat as it currently sits, so to speak. But I think some evolution of that. I think there is definitely going to be something there that could be a lot of good fun to work with. So I could easily see this double stacked approach in the future. And now Nick hasn't joined us. So Nick has decided to leave us. I've clearly bored him with my ideas already. So what we will do now is we'll give Nick a moment to see if he's going to come back, because then he'll just cut this bit out of the edit anyway. But if not, then we will just crack on and keep evaluating it. But he's not going to come back. So really, the first element that we would want to look at in this, as we've been going into, we've been looking at breaking down all of these stories by these 5 main elements. So really, when you want to look at it from a personnel perspective, there's a few things that having something more up in the air. So if you imagine that this first this top row is kind of up in the air, you've got to get up with up a small ladder to go and get to it. It's almost like the issues that you got with a traditional bunk bed almost, and being able to play with that. So how would you engage with the things you normally do around that space? And some of the things that have been highlighted is, like, if you've got children, when you want to let children out, when normally you'd let, as annoying as it is, you let them wander around the seat area, wander in the aisle, because there isn't very much space. Small children don't really understand the need to be shut in a very small can, especially if you're going for a number of hours. So you need to have that space to let them do that. Would their lack of awareness of a fall element there mean that they couldn't go into them top rows? And then taking that one step further, there is people who just wouldn't be able to physically get into them spaces. Therefore, does that mean actually them top levels become a bit more elitist? The fact that you can only go in them if you're fully able-bodied, in the same way that if you want to sit on the aisle that has the emergency exit, you have to be a fully able-bodied person in order to be able to operate that emergency door, which is something I quite like to do because I've got longer legs and they normally have more space there. So I could sort of see that being a bit of an issue. Nick, have you got any, now that you've decided to come back and join us, have you got any thoughts on what is it about people that we need to think about when looking at these seats?
Yeah, I'm going to jump down to sort of, you're talking about various conditions that people are, that I guess attributes that people have. And I'm wondering, with respect to these seats, is there still going to be sort of an ADA section, American Disabilities Act for you over there in the UK? But basically, we're talking about disabilities, wheelchair, that type of thing. But not every disability is visible. So those you mentioned it in the blurb, but I think those with mild cases of things like anxiety or claustrophobia, those might be exacerbated by the seating arrangement. And so how do you account for that? Do you have sort of the normal seats, like, I don't know, 10 to 12 normal seat rows in the back that would accommodate for this, and the rest of them are like, loaded up? And then the other thing that I am thinking of when you're talking about the seating arrangement, just generally, is sort of the user interface of the applications that you use, the airplane apps that you use to pick your seat. What does that look like? Because do you make the plane twice as long now that you have so many seats? How do you indicate top versus bottom? You're introducing a whole other dimension with that upper level that you didn't have before. And then also, how do you select ADA seats or seats that are going to be accommodating to your conditions? And so I'm thinking about a lot here. And like I said, this was one of the easiest things for me to write up in terms of show notes because there's a million different issues that I see. What strikes you, Barry? Where do you want to go next in this conversation?
Well, I mean, for me, I guess an easy one to knock out to begin with would be that training aspect, because we go onto an aircraft, and we're all trained to, or culturally trained now. You go onto it, you pick your seat, you make sure that you've got enough arm room. You have that little bit of a fight with either the person who sat next to you, the air crew give you the briefing, which you now largely ignore, which is something we covered on a previous episode. And you kind of into it. You know where your baggage goes. You roughly know what's going on. This is going to be a bit of a shock to the system in many ways. When the A380 came out and it was double decker, a lot of people said that couldn't happen, and that type of thing. It's a different way of thinking. So you're going to have to learn how to deal with that, because you're going to behave differently because you're going to be in that enclosed space. How are you going to, how you interact with the people either side of you, if it is going to go 3 in a row. So there's going to be them sort of things that unofficial conditioning is going to have to change. But then also, what about flight crew and the flight attendants? They're going to have to have new training packages. They're going to have to know what to do differently in this type of aircraft, because if they don't all go like this, we're going to have loads and loads of different types of aircraft. And so what will be the burden, the training burden there, in having for flight crew, in having to recognize the special needs that this is going to have, because it's going to have special needs, which I think we'll talk about with the engineering bit. But how to manage your passengers is going to be very, very different. I can see, just because you've got them 2 levels. If nothing else, at that top level, when you press the call attending light, they come along. Are they going to be busy staring at your at the crotch level? Somebody trying
How
to
can I
hand
help
food
you,
up?
sir?
Yeah, well, yeah. Are you going to be handing food up? Are you, what are the issues associated with that? Yeah, I think there's going to be some interesting pieces on that. But I think that this is all small fry stuff. I think that the real meat of this sandwich, so to speak, is in the engineering. Do you not think?
Yeah, I do. I think if we're talking about solutions, I'm wondering if there's going to be like just really quick, a double decker serving cart where, they have a step stool that allows them to raise themselves up to get on their level. And maybe you have one person serving the top and one person serving the bottom as they cart it along,
That would be genius.
So yeah, I just thought of it. You're welcome. There's the patent. And so there's solutions, but there are going to be new ways to do that, right? How do you mount up the flight attendant on that platform? How do you store it? How do you access the things down below in a way that's not going to, I don't know, interfere with your ability to hand it to people? Because there's a specific
And Nick now deciding that he doesn't want to talk to us at all. So yeah, if we dive into that engineering piece, then for me, as I said, this is where I think most of the fun is going to be, because firstly, let's look at this in terms of the idea was meant to make budget aircraft, or the budget area, the economy seating area, to be better. So what is invariably going to happen, undoubtedly, flight aircraft aircraft manufacturers and airline executives are going to look at this and say, brilliant, we can fit half as many people again onto this aircraft. Now, I guess you got to look at that and say, well, is that actually true? Because if you can fit half as many again people on the aircraft, then will the engines take it? Will it be certificated to take that amount of load? Because most aircraft have to work within tolerances. And so if you're retrofitting current aircraft, then I cannot see that you're going to be able to just turn around and say, right, we can take half as many again people, because it just the weight of the aircraft that it can work within just won't take it. But say we have new aircraft and it's built with this in mind. Therefore, your the landing systems, and all the capability of the aircraft is therefore designed to take in another half again amount of people. If you've got all these people, then they are going to need to get on that aircraft, and we all know what it's like when you go down to the boarding area. You go down to the gate. Gates are already one of these places that's quite cluttered up already when lots of people are there. And how fractious do you get when you're standing in line waiting to get onto a flight? So when you try and get onto that, it's going to take half as long again to get on the aircraft if it isn't well managed, well facilitated. So the systems are going to have to be in place in order to make the onboarding of the passengers, to make that as quick and easy as possible. So, as we've already said, in the terminal itself, there's going to be less waiting room. There's going to be more need for staff to be there to deal with angry people and things like that. So you're going to need more staffing around that terminal area. But if we've got more, but just because you've got it in that terminal area, it then that rolls onto the rest of the facilities, the rest of the airport. Does everything there actually fit this new abundance of people in there? Because all the people who are it isn't just the people coming through that you need to think about, but it's all the people who make this sort of stuff happen. So your security staff, your airline crew, airline staff to get to issue tickets and make sure do all the seat allocations. All the people who you don't see that make all this happen. So, because if you've got more people, you've got more luggage. If you've got more luggage, you're going to have more systems that can cope with a lot more luggage going through there, and it be robust. And if we haven't got this overhead space on the aircraft, like in the article, they did say that they've engineered that space in elsewhere, but are we going to have to even more reduce the amount that people take into the cabin? Therefore, we're going to need more space on the aircraft to actually store all this luggage. So there's a lot of knock-on effect, I think, with a lot of this. And that's even before you get into. So all we've talked about really at the moment is systems around the supporting of the number of people. When you get into the actual seat itself, there's going to be all sorts of issues to play with. So firstly, we're getting very popular now. Rather than in modern aircraft, rather than having the aircrew standing up and give you a safety brief, you watch the video in front of you. So we need to make sure that video, the video screen that's mounted into the seat in front of you, which is now going to be mounted into the bottom of the seat in front of you, is going to have to be at the right eye line. You're going to have to be able to control that easily enough. It's going to have to be make sure that works. Is not too close to your face. Then you've got everything around the seat itself. How do you make sure you've got enough movement in the seat to allow an ergonomic fit when you sit down? But with the way that seat is set up at the moment, it looks like it could be fairly limited in terms of movement. That we don't know yet. So we need to play with that. So we'll sort of see how that all rolls through. But then it's not just when you're sat there that it's important, but it's you've got to transition in and out of this seat. And Nick, I don't know if you've had it before, where if you're sat in the middle seat of an aircraft, that you have to get out, you have to do that whole, oh please, can I just get by? How much worse is that going to be when you've got not only somebody sat beside you, but this other seat right in your face?
Right. Yeah. Well, that alone is going to be difficult for the middle seat, but it's going to be even more difficult for those on the complete edge, right? Because that's two people that you have to make it through. And if you look at the illustration or even the physical mock-up that they built, that's a really tight space. You can barely get your knees in there on the top level, right? It's very claustrophobic on the top. How does the person up against the window get out of there? I don't know. It's a lot to think about. I do want to talk a little bit about sort of the some of the issues that maybe we didn't think about as much before the last couple of years here with transmissible diseases. When you're that close to other people, you're very close in proximity, and so thinking about virus, cold, cough, those types of things. How does being this close to others affect transmissibility, especially when I don't know if you mentioned it, Barry, but you did mention this on the post show last time, so I'm going to bring up flatulence. When that's like right in your face, when you're like kind of in the bottom row, it's something that you have to consider, right? Beyond that, right, there's other sort of social or I guess aspects of how is the public going to give this. A lot of I don't
So yeah, I mean, it is going to be interesting, isn't it? Because if you have something like this, like we said earlier, this is such a dramatic change to what we're doing, because you're going to interact with people in completely different ways, and so we're going to have to do this whole piece in a way that we've got to be able to roll it out. So it's one of these things. How do you do that sort of campaign that normalizes what we're doing? What's an interesting piece with this is when people, I've never had the luxury of flying first class, for example, but you see the videos of people in first class, that luxury where they get beds and all this sort of stuff. And this is almost going the other way. But instinctively you have people to take you along that journey. So it goes back to almost that training issue that it will happen if this sort of concept was involved, but it will take time, and it comes into an issue that I think we'll get into later on about sort of culture and behavior. But then just to get back to that sort of that system safety thing that you were sort of talking about, as well as you're right, we're all very nervous now about getting into sealed cans and things because of our experiences with COVID. But even just on the real basics, if we're going to try and get into this high seat, what happens if as you're trying to clamber up this seat, there's quite a few people who maybe get on board an aircraft with having had one or two half lager shandies in the airport before they left. They might miss the footing and fall off, which would be a bit of a disaster. But even then, just like they might not fall off, but an errant foot might go and kick the person below in the face. For example, if their face is quite close to the ladder and your foot slips, it's not, where's that foot going to go? There doesn't seem to be that much space around that for that foot to go and disappear to. And then when you come into land, and invariably the same thing happens, even though you're told quite categorically keep your seatbelts on and keep sat down until the complaint comes to a complete stop and the seatbelt sign has been switched off. Well, that clearly never happens because everybody starts rooting around. They have to get the luggage out. Right. They have to get out of where it is, and they have to get into that thing because they have to be first off that aircraft. Now you potentially got another half as many people again on there. Everyone's going to bail as quickly as possible. And what about emergency situations, Nick? How do you think emergency situations are going to change in this scenario? Or do you think it's going to be one of these things that this type of thing, if we don't train people properly, if we don't give people the right sort of input, then what's that going to do to the likelihood of fatalities? I mean, for me, I can only see it's going to go one way. But if you've got it, so there's a number of emergency exits that currently exist. We know that there's two at the front and the two at the back, and I'm doing the cool little the hand signals that we all know and love. Are we going to have to put more in to make that actually work properly? But there is the engineering side of this. I think there is going to be an awful lot there to get into. But as Nick mentioned right from the start, then this isn't a design that is there now that's going to be installed. It is a concept that's been done by a 21-year-old student, and so all this is sort of stuff that really good usability testing will bring out, and therefore I think that'll be quite good. What is going to be quite interesting, I think, is when we look at the organizational and social aspects of this. Nick already alluded to it with the, if you're having to pass out drinks to various people, how do you not only mechanically get up there from an engineering perspective, but how do you work both of them elements? How does your socially, how does your relationship with other passengers work? And really, I guess a question for me that and I think, Nick, you guys have in episodes, apparently there was episodes before I came along. I didn't know this, but you guys have been doing episodes for a long time.
Oh yeah.
You've been talking about different cultural divides that different types of technology would bring. What do you think that the cultural divide will be between this? Will it not just exacerbate that divide between rich and poor?
I don't know. Will it? I mean, will the cost of seats differ depending on whether you're up top or down below? I don't know. What is the pricing structure? That's something else that we have to consider. It will certainly be a divide between able-bodied and unable-bodied, or however you phrase that. I don't know. Right? So there's going to be the. I mean, you kind of get it now with you take the seats that have the larger legroom because you can open up the door. But this is going to be that times however many seats are stacked up against each other, because you have, all those people on top need to be able to get down quickly, and the people on bottom need to be able to get out into the aisle without any issue, right? So do you need to have like twice the amount of emergency exits? I think that is yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Barry, do you have any other closing thoughts on this story?
Oh, yes, I mean, for me, this is fascinating. As we said from the off, I think I really like the idea that somebody's taking this and thinking out the box. I think there is a lot that engaging a human factors practitioner in this will help this design evolve. I think it's got legs, for want of a better word. There's a lot of HFE to be done here, and I think there is a massive amount of social element. Nick, what do you think? Have you got any final things?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts that I wish I could have talked about, but internet, So
I did all that for you.
I know. I hope you enjoyed talking about this story, Barry, because I was really looking forward to it. Anyway, thank you to our patrons this week for selecting our topic, and thank you to our friends over at CNN for our news story this week. If you want to follow along, we do post the links to all the original articles on our weekly roundups on our blog. You can also join us in our Discord for more discussion on these stories. I'll be there. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to be seeing what's going on in the community right after this.
Human Factors Cast brings you the best in human factors news, interviews, conference coverage, and overall fun conversations into each and every episode we produce. But we can't do it without you. The Human Factors Cast network is 100% listener supported. All the funds that go into running the show come from our listeners. Our patrons are our priority, and we want to ensure we're giving back to you for supporting us. Pledges start at just $1 per month and include rewards like access to our weekly Q&As with the hosts, personalized professional reviews, and Human Factors Minute, a Patreon-only weekly podcast where the hosts break down unique, obscure, and interesting human factors topics in just 1 minute. Patreon rewards are always evolving, so stop by patreon.com/humanfactorscast to see what support level may be right for you. Thank you, and remember, it depends.
Yes, huge thank you as always to our patrons. We especially want to thank our honorary Human Factors Cast staff patrons, Michelle Tripp. Patrons like you keep the show running. And not only do you keep the show running, you keep our lab running too. Did you know that we have a digital media lab? In fact, I alluded to it during the pre-show tonight. We are working on some really exciting things that we can't quite talk about yet. But a lot of them you already seen. So some of the Pride stuff, all of the Pride stuff, actually, last month, came directly out from our lab. Lots of really bright minds working on that stuff. We are focused on communicating human factors in a fun, entertaining way. Like I said, we have some exciting projects we can't talk about yet. If you want to get involved, reach out to us. We may be able to find some room for you. You can also get some work experience on some real world tools. And hey, that deep dive that I mentioned at the top, that's something else that the lab has produced. There's a lot of really cool things coming out of there. We always like to take a little bit of time every now and then to mention that is a thing. So maybe check it out. Anyway, we're getting into this next part of the show.
It came from.
That's right. It came from. This is where we search all over the internet to bring you topics the community is talking about. And no matter where you're watching, listening, I don't know how else you're absorbing this, hearing. Anyway, give us a like, a heart, a thumbs up, wherever you're at. It helps other people find this content. All right, we got 3 tonight. First one here is from the Human Factors subreddit. I always like it when we get them from there. This is by user I Got Qualms, talking about job titles. This is specific to the Human Factors field. So I'm a couple months away from completing a master's in human factors, and I've been looking into the job market. I've Googled jobs titled Human Factors, ergonomics, user research, etc., but there don't seem to be very many with those in my city. What other jobs could I look up that'd be relevant to my degree? I live in England, if that helps. So, Barry, I'm hoping for like a UK perspective on some of these job titles. What does it look like over there? What are y'all called?
I hadn't read in the pre-show actually that this is an England person, because I'm very surprised that using them terms you haven't found acres of jobs, or you live somewhere so remote, because the English or the UK ergonomics job market at the moment is massively buoyant. There are so many jobs out there. So I don't know, change your search engine maybe. But I would reach out to the Chat Institute of Ergonomics and Human Factors, go on their website. There is jobs posted up there. But to be honest, the terms that you're going for are the terms I'd be hitting. Go and maybe the other bit I would do is go and look at specific employers. So if you want to work in things like defense, rail, the nuclear, things like that, go and couple up these terms with them domains, because they are, I can almost definitely say that their jobs are out there using them terms.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm in the same boat, right? For me, a lot of those jobs using those terms, you'd come back with some results, and I'm wondering what parameters are you using to filter? Because if you are just looking at geolocation, well, yeah, if you are remote, you're going to have a hard time unless you find somebody doing remote work. But for something like ergonomics, it's a little harder to do. There's other titles, I guess, that you can look for, right? Human factors engineer is one of them. And it's going to, sometimes it varies by domain. You might just be called an engineer or usability specialist, or, if you're in tech, it could be UX researcher, could be UX. So there's, I don't know. I don't know why I'm coming up with a blank too, Barry. I was really hoping that there's something unique about the UK that's just, odd. But yeah, okay.
I mean, I would say, I mean, having said that, there's tons of jobs out there. It is still a niche market compared to software, or your standard engineering, things like that. So comparatively, yes, there's fewer jobs. And I guess most of them jobs do. I don't know whether I'll go and push myself out there and say this, that they're clustered around places like London, Farnborough, Bristol, Cardiff, some north, so around the sort of Preston area, Loughborough, but there are dotted up and down the country. Northern Scotland for some safety critical work. So they're definitely out there. That's what I would say.
Make some connections. Maybe join our Slack or our Discord and talk to Mr. Barry Kirby. See if he has any other thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's get into this next one here. How stressful, demanding, or intense is this job or career? This one's actually on the user experience subreddit by Psykit. But what is your work-life balance like? Mostly in terms of working hours or having to take your work home with you. I've worked menial labor jobs where it's clock in, clock out, mindless kind of work. I'm just scared that I won't be able to adapt to a high-stress, fast-paced, highly competitive, and demanding workplace or lifestyle, assuming that might be the case. Barry, how stressful, demanding, or intense is your job or career?
Without wanting to put people off, this is what I love about the human factors world is I think you can make it as high or low stress as you want to have, depending on the role that you go into. So mine personally is quite high stress, but then I run my own business and I'm have to look after staff. I'm doing various bits, and I have a quite a high I guess threshold for quality and things like that. So I don't like to be sitting around doing nothing. I'm always trying to bounce around new ideas and push stuff out. But equally, I know that there are loads of other roles out there that are, I wouldn't say menial, but they are clock in, clock out. You go in, you do the job, you leave again, and it's not mindless. Because I don't think I've ever been in any role in HF that I could call mindless. It is because there's always something stimulating. This is why I guess why we do the job. But there are more roles there that are better for a work-life balance. My work-life balance is largely rubbish because running my own business, I'm particularly being a family business now because not only does my wife work in our company, but also my daughter does now as well. So it is, it has been made part of our living and breathing. So I'm a bad example, but you shouldn't be scared about joining somewhere that because it being high stress and fast paced. There are loads of jobs out there that allow you to almost pitch it to be right for you. So just go with it and see what you think. Nick, what do you think?
Well, yeah, you're right. It really does depend. Hit the button for how you approach your job and the company and values that they have too. For me, I am I'll give you all insight, right? I was banging my head against a wall yesterday to trying to get something to make my job easier. Full disclosure, I was trying to do some things that wouldn't quite work, and it got to the point where I felt like physically queasy because I was like sitting at my computer, just going, "Does this work? Does this work? Does this work?" That's a rarity where I feel that. I value work-life balance very much to the point where, 3:00 every day, I'm done. And unless there's like a really important thing that I need to do, or I'm on travel or something like that, I'm done. Don't schedule me anything after that. And fortunately, the people that I work with respect those boundaries. And I think part of your success with making it or preventing it from being a demanding or intense job is setting those boundaries. Don't allow people to kind of walk over you and say, I'm done. I'm out of here. Do not contact me until tomorrow, unless it's like, a real emergency. And the other thing I'll say to that is that, you in terms of taking work home with you, I work from home, so it's here, but also at the same time, I can leave my desk, go sit down on the couch with my wife and son, and still be thinking about work. And I consider that still working if I'm working through a problem or something. And so there's like, you need to think about what that actually means. Are you the type of person that will perpetually think about how to better something like Barry or myself, or are you somebody who can turn it off, which I envy you, because if it's like a faucet for you, you turn it off and go, then those are two very different types of lifestyles that you'll live. Like I can say I'm done at 3 and I will be done at 3. I'm not going to sit at my desk past 3, but I might think about something. But I won't go back and work on it until after the next day has started. Right. So just thinking about that. I don't know. Any other thoughts on that one?
No, not really. I think it is that case of I think human factors is better generally at recognizing, certainly if you're working in an HF team, we are sometimes better at understanding how people work. I say it generally. I've also worked in situations where that hasn't been the case, and I've had to fight our corner. So really think about the company you're working for, and if the company isn't working for you and you've tried to change stuff, might be trying to find another company. But they are out there. There are some really good employers out there, so don't let it put you off.
Apparently not in the UK, though.
Not in the UK. You can't find us. Not at
All
all.
right. Let's get into this last one here. This one's on the user experience subreddit by Booey Booey. An executive summary of a user flow ? Those of you that work with people or speak in PowerPoint, how do you present your user flows? More often than not, I end up talking through a PowerPoint of exported artboards where I explain motivations, suggestions, and highlight certain details. Is there a tool that provides a middle ground between completely functional and completely static user flows? I'd love to be able to include notes, navigation, arrows on the blank space outside the fully functional prototype being presented. Barry, just generally, how do you communicate user workflows or flows within an interface, or even just task flows in general?
I'm PowerPoint, and that's mainly because my clients generally work with the with Microsoft Suite. Therefore, if I want to export stuff, it goes with them. But PowerPoint in itself is really powerful. It's way more powerful than people give it credit for. So you can use it in a kiosk mode where people use it as a complete. I mean, I've done aircraft display prototyping with it, and because I've got it so you can export that, you can send that to pilots and they can play with it in their own time, and it's not the same, but it does give you your flows and things like that. Equally, you can use it in ways that more step, they're more whiteboarding, so you can step through things that way. I have tried other tools, things like Figma do this sort of stuff quite well. Visio to a certain extent can make that play. And there are loads of other tools out there, and there's more and more appearing on the market every day on the internet. The bit that I always struggle with, and particularly now with us working remote so much more, is the clients have got to be able to see what you're producing. The more the cleverer the tool, the more expensive the tool is, and therefore the chance of your client being able to either have, say, Figma or something like that, if you can't export it properly, then they're not going to have it. Therefore, they're not going to be able to see it. Therefore, you're not necessarily wasting time, but you're going to have to cut it into a way that they have. Now, if you can create standalone models, brilliant. The downside of that is if they don't export as HTML and they export as an executable. If you put an executable into an email or something like that, chances are firewall's going to pick it up. The client's not going to be able to get it unless it's been sanitized. It's just a whole lot of stress. So I do, and I'm an old curmudgeon, so I do believe in keeping it simple. So it takes a lot for me, and I've tried different tools. Still, PowerPoint is the one I go to. Nick, what about you? You're a bit more of a young go-getter than I am. So what do you use?
Oh, PowerPoint. I mean, look, like here, yeah, I agree with you entirely, and I've echoed that sentiment on the show before. That PowerPoint is much more powerful than people do give it credit for. It is insanely robust and accessible for a lot of different people, especially when you're working in something like defense, where things are locked down and they can't open, like you said, some of those more fancy tools. And so, yeah, PowerPoint. But I think the thing that I want to talk about is almost more abstract in nature, right? Like, what if you have this massive flow that you're trying to communicate, that goes through a process, role based. You have them almost in swim lanes, and you have different tasks at different times and coordination between those roles. That gets more complex to share when you're looking at this massive flow with all these, tasks along the way, decision points and everything. And for something like that, this is what I want to talk about, because I found that this really works for me, is make that your product. Make that pretty as a deliverable, because you can talk through it. Now, it does become a little bit more difficult to present something that large. However, I do want to mention this. I've used a mini map in the past. So I've put, here's the entire task flow on the first slide. And then up in the top right corner, this is a mini map. And then you zoom in on little bits and pieces and talk through them as they make sense. And so I'm going to walk you through this path first and kind of just do screenshot, 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 screenshot as it's going through that one path. And then say, okay, here's the different way that could have gone, and kind of loop you back. So there's a couple different ways to approach that problem. And I think that is the one trick tip that I want to pass along is mini maps. All right. Any other closing thoughts on this one, Barry?
The only other one that I've used that I thought was interesting and got away was an app called Prezi, which was one of these that is slightly more animated that steps you through. I personally never got comfortable with it in a way that would allow me to do, but I really, that whole sketching idea that takes you from one to another, I kind of like that approach. If I could find a tool that would do it, so that was one that was out there that was sort of good, and you could. I did get a little bit of traction with a client once that was better than just a slam door. So that might be worth looking at. I don't know, but that's me.
All right, we're moving on to that last part of the show. Needs no introduction. Well, it's right here. It's one more thing. This is where we just talk about one more thing, human factors related or not. Barry, what's your one more thing this week?
So I was, and I've only got one, so I'm back to form. I was in a special interest group the other day. So the CIHF have a bunch of special interest groups, and this one was AI and digital. And in the agenda, which was kind of lucky because I hadn't actually read the agenda beforehand. I'm normally better organized than this, but I jumped into this very last minute. And one of the items was whether Google had got sentient AI or not. And they were sort of discussing this, and I chipped in. I was like,
"Oh, that sounds familiar."
I was talking about this just the other day, and they're like, "Were you?" And I said, "Yes." And that clearly you guys don't listen to the podcast I'm part of. I'm like, "Oh, what are you talking about?" So I said that our last episode was on Google AI, and so I said, "Oh, could you put the link in the chat?" And so I put the link in the chat, and they all seemed to like it. So it was all. I thought that was a nice link from what we do here into direct application.
That's nice, Barry. I don't hear enough of those stories. If you have a story where you've if our listeners have a story where they've taken an episode and said, "Hey, they just talked about this," I'd love to hear more about that. My one more thing this week is on automation. I talked a little bit about this in the pre-show. In fact, I talked a lot about this in the pre-show. I showed a whole diagram of what I made in terms of logic. I just want to talk about sort of the reward that comes with banging your head against a task for hours and hours and hours in order to make your life easier, because it really is, right? Like, I'm thinking about the amount of time I'm putting into something versus the amount of time that it is going to save me in automation in days, months, years time. I've just done something this week that is going to save me an hour every month. And so my return on investment, on this is going to be 6 months down the line because I spent about 6 hours on it. And so I'm really happy with that. It'll take a 6 months for it to pay for itself. But seeing everything happen just, entirely automated is just insane and rewarding, and would highly recommend it. And I'll talk about Zapier. It's just an amazingly powerful tool for connecting your applications and having it just do things. No code. It's awesome. Anyway, that's all I got, and that's it for today, everyone. If you like this episode, enjoy some of the discussion about improvements about flying in planes, I'll encourage you to go listen to episode 214, where we talk about games potentially improving in-flight passenger safety. Go comment wherever you're listening with what you think of the news story this week. Did you enjoy Barry's commentary? I certainly did. I'm going to go back and listen to it later because there were so many drops on my end. Anyway, for more in-depth discussion, you can join us on our Discord community. You can visit our official website, sign up for our newsletter, stay up to date with all the latest human factors news. If you like what you hear, you want to support the show, there's a couple things you can do. Right now, you can go to whatever podcast reviewer you're on and leave us a 5-star review. That's free for you to do. Like Barry is saying, tell your friends about us. That really helps the show grow. People just might not know about us, and if you bring them a story like Google's AI, they might love it. So do that. And then 3, if you have the financial means to do so, we have an entire separate podcast on Human Factors Minute, which is a little chunk of human factors every week. If you support us on Patreon over there at the Human Factors Engineer level or higher, you'll get access to that. As always, links to all of our socials and our website are in the description of this episode. I want to thank Mr. Barry Kirby for holding down the ship and carrying that conversation all by himself today. Where can our listeners go and find you if they want to talk about what happens to what do you do if someone farts on you in these planes?
If you want to come and talk to me about flatulence or otherwise, hit me up at Twitter or on any socials, actually, at Baz_K. Or come listen to some of the interviews that we do on there. We sort of do more one-to-one interviews at 1202podcast.com.
As for me, I've been your host, Nick Roome. You can find me disconnecting from our Discord server and across social media at Nick_Roome. Thanks again for tuning into Human Factors Cast. Until next time,
It
depends. Okay, scale of 1 to 10. How bad were the drops? Like, did I drop mid-sentence?
Yes.
Nah.
No. Well, actually, no, you gracefully degraded, and therefore that's when I started picking them up.
Okay.
There is one bit at the start where I went because I couldn't work out whether you were disappearing or not, and so there was a couple of quiet bits where I think you'll need to chop that.
Yeah, I'll go back and rewind. I don't think it's too bad. I only marked down a couple times on my notes here.
Yeah,
but
no, I think there was only that one that I was that I didn't pick up the ball properly. I think everything else was, I think it was okay, and that was largely down to you doing such good show notes, because otherwise I'd have been probably not very good.
We're still live.
Yeah, exactly. I caught myself. That was really good.
Oh, that was good. That was good. That was good. Yeah.
I didn't do it mid-show.
You know what? And to be fair, this is not going on our podcast feed, so I don't have to mark it explicit.
Yeah, no, that's fair. In
People,
that case,
yeah, people could tune in to hear us say "fuck" here in the pre-show and post-show.
what the fuck they got to do about it? Hey, but
Look at us professionals. This is posted on LinkedIn, right?
yeah. Oh yeah. See, nobody's listening this late tonight. So
that we can see. So the little number that I mentioned, it's like right above me right here. You can't see that.
Nope.
Okay. So that tells me how many people are watching live.
Okay.
And more people tonight than normal, which is great.
Really?
Yeah, it doesn't hook up to a couple services though that really leaves me wanting more. So I can see how many people are watching on 1202. I can see how many people are watching on Human Factors Cast Facebook.
Ooh.
I can't see how many people are watching on Twitter. I can't see how many either of our platforms. I can't see how many people are watching on the 1202 YouTube feed. If you post it there, I don't know. Do you do that?
No, I don't.
You don't?
I don't think so. I think this goes on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook at the moment. I need to hook it up to that. I haven't done that yet.
Yeah, and I can't see LinkedIn for either of us.
Okay.
I can. What I can see is YouTube for Human Factors Cast, Twitch for Human Factors Cast, Facebook for Human Factors Cast, and Facebook for 1202. So I can see how many people are watching across those platforms. So when we do calls, I can see, there's several of you watching, and none of you have typed in the chat. Would love to hear from some of you all. Just give us a little hello.
That level of data, then there's clearly the competitive streak in me is going to come out. Who's winning?
What's that?
Who's winning? Where do we have more live listeners to?
There's 0 on 1202 right now, and there's 3 across the Human Factors Cast channel.
That's rubbish. Where have you all gone? Come back.
Yeah.
Rating the people who are out there.
I think we hit like 6 tonight at one time, which is actually quite a lot for our live streams. Usually we're sitting at like, I don't know, 2 or 3.
Couple. Yeah.
So, I for our niche area, I'm not surprised that the live number is so low.
No, and the time is, I guess, there's no ideal time to do this.
No,
for
there's not.
So it just is. Yeah. It's
right. Fun. I mean, Blake and I used to do this at like 2 hours from when we start.
Midnight from my time, didn't you?
Yeah. And it I think it did a little better, but not much, right? I think it was like, hovering 4 or 5 on average instead of 2, 3, but it's like,
Yeah.
Everyone will get it in their feeds anyway.
Exactly.
And the earlier time allows me more time to do post, which means it gets out more reliably.
More importantly, it allows me to get some sleep.
It allows you to get some sleep. Oh, working. Okay. We got some chats here. Great.
Oh, good.
All right. Our audience is alive. Okay. I have up the deep dive on one of my screens because what I need in our show notes formatter is some way to put in like show notes community update, because I have it like static for 1202, but I need to do stuff like where I think about, we need to talk about, the Pride stuff, because we didn't quite wrap that up last week because we were off. But yeah, I mean, this is like this deep dive, by the way, y'all, is really good. It is like I said, all the stuff from Pride is really good, but like this is a real deep dive. The human factors minutes are a minute, still highly researched, and certainly, a lot of effort and time go into those. I don't want to downplay those. Those are great content too. In fact, human factors minute is also something I'm really proud of as well.
So you should be, because it's good stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm messing around with it. There we go. In fact, I don't need that to be off anymore. I don't need to be messing around with it. Just put you up on full screen. And I was debating about buying because I have 2 widescreens that I use at the moment. I was wondering whether I'd be better off just getting one super widescreen. Because it's less wires and stuff, and also they're quite cool. Then it's still over £1,000 each. That's quite expensive. I can't really justify that to myself.
Yeah, I have 3 monitors. I have one large one wide one that I split halfway, so that way I see you and I on and the stream controls on one side of it, and then I have the show notes on the other side, and then I have ancillary information up like Discord over here in case anyone's chatting in there while we're doing this live. And then I also have a new addition, which is my Ethernet connection over time right here. So
Okay.
I can see live when I'm dropping. God, that's so frustrating. I have half a mind to call them while we're on the air. Be like, hey, you guys are recording this on your end. Do you mind if I record this on my end just for my records? And then host that conversation live here to bitch at them, because it seems like every week the pre-show is okay, or maybe there's a slight drop, but then they wait for the big drops until we actually start, and it's very, very, very frustrating. Like I was pretty upset.
And there wouldn't be anything with. So I was going to say, there's nothing in Restream that would make it heavy, is it? Because it's already going out, and that shouldn't change anything.
No, for us, Restream is effectively a video conferencing thing. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So we're just uploading to them, and they're pushing out, right?
Exactly.
So we're not doing the like massive upload stuff. So I don't know. It's just so weird how it drops like that.
It might be interesting. I don't know. No other platform you can use to sort of test it, really, isn't there?
Well, like I said, I just have my like if you were to go Control-Alt-Delete, and then how that you can go to Task Manager, it shows you processes. Yeah. You can also look at performance, and under that you can show Ethernet, and that's what I use to monitor because it shows me the bit rate, it shows me the send and receive, and when my send goes way down, I'm like, okay, well there we go.
Yeah.
Or my receive. Really, they both just go down, and it's.
I thought it might have ended up with problems there because I was playing in my lunch hour. I got into Valorant, which is the online game, and that started dropping out around lunchtime. And because we've just had an internet upgrade, and which I don't know whether I mentioned the other week, but we've now got it coming in, and we now get we've got now 900 meg download.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I was like, that's what's really weird is I think it's just a game on number 2 because it doesn't actually equate to better connection at my laptop, say, because that there's only so much rate that it can do that, but it does mean that you can have more platforms on your network. So, right. So basically, the kids now and Amanda can all stream
while you're podcasting, and
podcasting it doesn't matter.
Yeah. That's me too, and I'm actually even I've made it so I have a pre-show checklist, And on that checklist, I've now included hard restart my PC, so there's no PC issues. Hard restart my router, so there's no internet issues, although still persisted tonight. Plug in my, connection, because what I've done, I only have a cable long enough to go to the Ethernet, which is kind of on the opposite end from me, and so it's kind of got a. What I've done is I've put hooks in the ceiling, and I've looped. I've looped the cable over to it, so that way, as the wife and kid get home, they don't trip over it or anything. I have to unplug it throughout the week, otherwise it's an eyesore. And I'm not streaming throughout the week, so it's not that it's
Yeah.
And you know what? Truthfully, if I disconnect from work meetings, it's not the worst thing in the world. So, unless I'm moderating, in which case it's bad. But anyway.
Oh, see, that's where I've been pretty much, if I can get a hard wire in there, I now tend to get a hard wire in. Just connectivity. But I then, because this where I'm at now is right at the end of my garden, so I had to, what am I, about 35 meters away from the house? So I had to get 35 meters or, well, more than that, or armored Cat 6 cable to drop in, which was fun, but it's all cool.
Yeah, I need to just do it. I need to get a longer cable. I think this one that I have is 25 feet, and it's not quite long enough. So, and I'm in the same room effectively as my router. It's just
so
right over there.
You could up and around, yeah.
Yeah, but I need it to go up and then over hug the wall, so that way it's not nice or all that stuff. We're in a rental, so it's not like I can drill into the wall and hide it through it. It's like or into the ceiling and just throw it over.
Right, yeah.
So there's some constraints, but I need to just do it so that way I'm in all the time. Although most of the time it's fine, and honestly, my internet doesn't drop until the afternoon on Thursdays. It's so weird throughout the entire week. I mean, maybe it does, but throughout the entire week, it's totally fine until I decide to get on and stream. And I don't know if it's the constant load that's something, but I mean, I'm on work meetings all throughout the week too, which have the same amount of output. It's
what time is it there with you now?
It is 3:36 p.m.
I'm just wondering, is there in the apartment building that you're in, because presumably do you have one your service provider has one cable going into the thing and then it routes off through the building, or do you have different cables coming in from different providers?
That one. So I can't I don't know which providers everyone has. There's one that's kind of favorable, I guess, just because of the download speeds, and which is the one I have, but it's totally unreliable. So I might switch to the other one, honestly. Anyway, I don't know what everyone else has, but there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in this one building,
right.
And so not too much. There's 4 on our side, 4 on that side, and I don't know if we're on the same one as them, or if I'm with these guys, or if it's all just one thing. I don't know. But frustrating.
Starlink.
And it's fine now. I know, right? Starlink.
Strap Starlink onto the side of your window or something. Surely, what could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, exactly. Every time the internet goes out, I've been doing this just to see, Someone's taking pictures over here.
Nice.
This was a fun project. This was a really fun project. I was worried when I opened up the light. When I bought it, it was advertised as let the sun in, and it was shown on a wall. And I was like, oh, okay, it's a wall mount. That's great because I can just throw it on my wall. And it's a ceiling. It's a you have to do a ceiling light, like a light fixture on the ceiling. So it didn't come with a plug, is what I'm saying. And so I had to figure out okay, how much voltage and current and all that stuff. How do I what is the adapter, and how do I get that to go to a light switch, and do I need how did the dimmer switch work? The dimmer switch itself was almost as expensive as the thing, as the light, because it's meant for LEDs, and like I don't know, very specific. And then the box is a couple bucks.
Oh,
but
it's a proper slider job. Oh, nice. Like that.
What's that?
It's a proper slider. It's not just...
Yeah, it's a slider.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's cool.
Yeah, I wouldn't do the like incremental push buttons, because those are... I wanted way more control over it because of... Hey, though, if I turn this up all the way, you can actually see the Darksaber right here that you can't see. There's a hidden lightsaber here on my shelf that you cannot see.
I'm
when
surprised the cam hasn't compensated actually for that.
What, the darkness?
Yeah, normally it's... Well, no, if you go bright, normally the camera is quite good at adapting.
Yeah, you know what? The reason why is because I've set it. Because I didn't want it auto-adjusting while I'm on, because it can be finicky sometimes.
Yeah.
And I wanted it dialed in for my lighting setup. And so, like, the contrast of everything behind me, the books, and all that stuff you can see really well, including Escape Podcast up here. Not blown out like other signs in the background. I'm just saying, Barry.
Well, yeah, you're right. That's fair.
Although, to be fair, there is just a little part, like right here, where you can't read. I guess it is kind of waving. I have like a animation on it, so that way it, kind of glows almost.
Okay.
And let's see here. I'm seeing if I can change some parameters on it to make it look better on screen, because it's not actually something that I've tried. I need to do both side buttons. Never mind. Oh, you playing with the...
Yeah, I decided to work. It keeps on dropping out of working on my Stream Deck. It's not working.
You know what's funny? Remember last time we were on, in the pre-show, we were playing with the Zoom?
Yeah.
That was the preview on YouTube. When you like hover over it, it's like people, zooming in and out of our... Okay, not only that, but we had done that seconds after I had mentioned that I should curb the sarcasm, because my therapist says it's really unhealthy. And I told her that I had mentioned it on the pre-show, and she's like, "Oh, I'd love it if you sent that to me." I didn't think, about it, and I was like, "Oh, okay, that was like right at the beginning of the show. Great. Okay, so I sent her like, check in at 45 seconds. That's where I mentioned it." She's like, "Oh, that was great. You really described it well, and you guys seemed like you had a lot of fun with the Zoom."
Brilliant. Zoom's fun, though.
Yeah.
I want to try and get, because I've been trying to set up the Stream Deck to work better, because I can do certain things. Like I've got it all set up with the shortcuts, so I can change all the picture types and like say the zoom on the camera and set up so I can press a button on here and it automatically pops up the chat and stuff like that. But then I was doing some researching the other day, because Rode bought out their Podcaster 2 deck.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've got the Podcaster 1 because I'm no good at podcasting, so I clearly could have the best gadget. So I got that, and I love it. It's brilliant. But what I like having, but I don't use because I do it all through this is, the soft pads, when you can bring in your sounds and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do it all through Stream Deck, then through Restream, then I rarely use them. And I was thinking it would be really great to just be able to assign them the shortcuts that I use on Stream Deck. So then actually I could take Stream Deck out of the solution. Podcaster, the Rodecaster 2 allows you to assign functions, not just voices to them. And I was like, that's just worth £600 of my money right there. Except I don't have £600 to spend on it. But it just looks so pretty. So I'm tempted, but I can't justify it.
You're so tempted by the Rodecaster.
That's quite cool. I'm pleased that there would have been a weird thing if you tried using that through the episode tonight, and I wouldn't be able to work out whether you were just dropping out or that was a voice effect.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Human Factors Cast. My name is Nick Roome, and I'm here to tell you all about the latest Human Factors news with Mr. Barry Kirby.
That's pretty cool. I like that.
I had to turn off my
Human Factors minutes in that.
What's that?
Human Factors minutes in them sort of different voices. That would be amusing.
That would be. And I had to turn off my monitor because I didn't. It throws me off because there's a slight echo to it, right? So
right, yeah.
I couldn't tell what that sounded like, but I'm sure it sounded
wonderful.
Yes, I like that. I approve.
I love these little toys that we can play with.
Oh, we get bored otherwise.
Yeah. What does this one sound like?
Let's test it. Ooh. Quality post show. Whoa. All right. What about this one? Okay. That one's not too bad. And a chipmunk? Chipmunk. Oh, that one's really high. Okay.
What about this? What's that do? What is? Oh.
What's that?
Almost like dropping connection. Dropping.
Why do you need an effect for that? You've got your ISP.
Exactly. That's dumb. All right.
What?
This one's called Romantic.
Hello. Oh. Damn. Listen to my. Damn. Oh. Hello, everybody. My name is Nick Roome. I'm here to talk to you about human factors.
You sound a bit like Chef off South Park.
It's called Romantic.
We move that.
This one's called Ooh La La La. I kind of like this one better.
That's just like Chef with a bit of echo.
A little bit. Damn. All right.
Well, that's fun.
And keep you entertained for hours.
It really can.
What made to confuse the children? Just keep on using that all the like through the.
Keep on using it. Let's do some laughing, like I've swallowed a harmonica. Quality post show, folks.
Well, absolutely. You don't come to a post show for like decent, serious insight. It's just for the laughs.
How about them plane seats, though?
Oh.
You're sitting in the plane and you get farted on.
That would be, I mean, out of all the issues that are there with it, could you imagine just being sat there and all you just do is just, it wouldn't even be like the sort of silent but deadly. It's if somebody let you just sat there and going, that's in my face.
Yuck. This one's the Spellcaster.
Sounds like you should be like the dungeon master playing D&D.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. This one's called The Visitor. Let's see here.
What on? Are we talking like, I guess, I would say space visitor type thing?
right, that was
weird.
fun.
No idea what you're saying, but the
I was just doogie.
oh right, okay, that'll be it. Now you switch your mic off, so that doesn't help.
To it.
Oh no,
What's
you're
that?
back. No,
Yeah.
you went all quiet. So.
Oh, yeah. When we were doing this in the pre-show, there was a lot of scratchiness to it.
Yeah.
I'm really happy.
Speaking now of that and scratching. See, scratches the back.
Yeah, scratchiness is back. Or
And
something.
it seems like when you do that, now it seems to cut you out for a while.
How about now? You
No,
okay
you're back.
now?
Oh, that's all good. Now you just swallowed helium. See, next week now. In fact, I'm not here. Is it I'm not here. Or am I here next week? No, I'm here next week. It's the week after, isn't it?
By the way, viewer count has gone down.
I wonder why. What's everyone gone now?
Yeah. Well, we can see the things that work and the things that don't.
Also, us doing voice changes and just random sound effects doesn't do it for everybody.
But I'm having fun.
Well, that's all that matters then.
I think so. Oh, yeah, here we go. Greetings, Master.
Yeah, that's not too bad actually. That's pretty cool.
I am built for protocol and assassination.
Oh, I didn't realize I could do a full screen version. Oh, that's clever. That's quite cool, actually. So where does chat come up? I just realized you can put the whole thing full screen, rather than just in the frame. It doesn't help because you can't get to the chat. You can't get to the settings. It is quite a versatile platform. This it is quite cool.
Query. Would you rather be caught with contraband that is very illegal or just a little illegal?
Which voice is that now?
Oh, it's the same one. Oh. Hey, hi. Here we go. Hello. Hello.
Oh, I could catfish a swarm.
Wow, that's impressive.
Hi, my name's Alice. I've been saying for a while that we needed a female voice on the show,
That is seriously impressive.
but not like this.
Oh, that is that out of all of you, that is so realistic. There's a level of scratching, which is a shame, but
Yeah. Scratchy.
yeah, very. It must be doing. I mean, to do that, I mean that's impressive stuff. It must be doing an awful lot of processing in the background to make that happen.
We don't know.
Ah.
Oh.
Don't know.
It must be pulling it from a server and not like downloading it, because some work and some don't.
Yeah, I guess if it's all doing remote processing, then that's hard work.
Yeah. I don't understand this one.
Why is that not work?
And this one does.
Well, and that other one worked really well to begin with, and then
it just stopped. See, that one worked fine too.
Yeah.
And these ones?
It's the ones in beta.
It is the ones in beta.
Ah, right, yeah, okay. So they're just not as clean.
They're not as clean, which is a bummer.
Right. Astronaut. Astronaut works. But when I change it to a different... When I change it to a different character, it does not work. So I think, oh, hey, look at you out by the pool.
I know, right? Isn't that cool? Sorry, I shouldn't be... I'll be stressing your server just by playing that. I'll just sit in front of a brick wall instead.
Yeah.
Oh.
Would really like to do an episode of Human Factors Cast from space.
That could get harder with us not playing so well with the Russians at the moment. Oh, we just need to go and talk to SpaceX and also, I mean, if only we knew people at like NASA or Boeing or somewhere like that to drop us onto a craft somewhere.
No leads.
No, that's true.
Intercom off. Ooh.
That's nice. That's cool.
Yeah. The intercom makes it sound cool.
But this makes it sound smooth. Like I got a bowl over my head.
Yeah. How many different voices has it got? Is it one of these that's like literally hundreds, or is it?
Well,
they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 in beta. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 that rotate. So these are not the same ones every time. I think there actually might be 6 that rotate, and some of these stay static. It's almost like, a video game where you get a free one every day, and they switch out. If you really like one, you can buy one, that type of thing.
So what website's this?
This is a thing called Voice Mod. It's something that you download locally to your computer, which is why I'm confused. I think it does reach back to the server, which is the issue that I was experiencing a couple weeks ago. It just wouldn't connect to the server. I didn't know if that was like for account verification or for another reason, and now I'm thinking that a lot of the processing does happen off, in a cloud somewhere.
Okay. Yes, I've just pulled up their website.
Yeah.
Cool. I do like it there. Get started in 6 simple steps. Download voice mode and configure it correctly on your PC. Okay. Well, I'd hate to do it incorrectly. Cool. I'm play. Okay, that one's weird. Oh, I think now we prepared some tutorials to help you configure voice mode with your favorite programs. Oh, it's got Stream Deck. Oh, it's integrated to Stream Deck. Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, there's also a soundboard.
Soundboard.
Oh, wait, hang on. I'm having too much fun. Okay. Please. No pictures. All right. Well, that was an interesting post show. Anyway, I think it's about time we get out of here, right, Barry?
It is. Yes.
You can stick around for a couple minutes.
Yeah, we'll do a few minutes.
Just a few. It won't take too long. Anyway, for the rest of you, thank you for tuning in and appreciate you watching. And even though you're probably gone by now, For our patrons who are listening to this, hope you make it through the end. I don't know. For everyone else, we'll see you back next week. Got some cool stories for you. Anyway, bye, everybody. Bye. Have a good one.
Bye.